All right, hi. Hi. How are you doing? Like Jay, who you just saw and who I've met before, I certainly want to live in that world with 7 billion designers. And I want to talk a little bit about how the internet, as Danny talked about it, helps us get to that world if we do it right. It's in a conversation I want to call Rebuilding the Web We Want. And so I'm Mark Surman, and I have an amazing job, which is I actually get to love the internet for a living. And some of the things I love about the internet are it is far better than the world of Gilligan's Island that I grew up in. It is actually a world where, not only do we get equally ridiculous, funny things, on our screen to Gilligan's Island, but they're made by us. And they're made differently all the time. But I also love this internet, which is the one that Danny talked about, one that is spread out like a neural network around the world that you can't fit into a telephone book. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about those two aspects, and I want to talk about them, in a couple different ways. I want to talk about why and how I love the internet. I want to talk about empowerment and very much the kind of empowerment that Jay was talking about. But the first thing I actually want to talk about is power. Because as we actually think about where we go as humanity in this participatory world with the internet, there certainly is power that doesn't want it to work out the way that either Danny or Jay were talking about. So that's my first topic, is power. And it actually turns out good because of this Firefox guy in the suit. I want to talk about power and how we almost lost the web that we want and the web that we love. So think back. I know people are much younger than me here, but think back to 2003. It's probably, you're all alive in 2003. Space shuttle blew up, not so awesome. Canadians will remember SARS, couldn't get around much, kind of global fear of pandemic. And most of us had Internet Explorer on our desktop. Almost as bad as SARS, certainly probably worse than the space shuttle blowing up. And I'm not joking. How many people here use Gmail? Right? So you didn't then. If you had mail on the web, it was like this. You remember this? Reload, 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 reload. The web was shit in 2003. And it was also a time when if you went to a website with something other than Internet Explorer, you got this. I don't know how many people remember seeing that. You can only, so it was a world where it could work that way because if you go back to 2003 and you look at this graph of browser market share, Internet Explorer, Microsoft had 98% of the market. They were in a position to say how the internet worked. It was very different than the internet that Danny was describing. And the good news about Firefox, and I didn't make this happen, so I can be really proud of it, is by 2009, and certainly now, we've changed that. We've changed that where we're in a world of competition in how the internet works on many levels, including in browsers, and that has been a really critical factor in keeping us moving towards that 7 billion designer world that Jay was talking about. But I just want to say a little bit about how that happened and why it mattered. Certainly the how it happened is a pretty special story, because this is actually Mozilla. Mozilla's not me. Mozilla is a global community of tens of thousands of people who actually were the ones who beat Microsoft. It's an organization not only where the software is built by volunteers in many cases, but where without any marketing budget, we actually took down the biggest software company in the world, or certainly took a big piece out of its market share and its control over the internet, because people individually went and installed Firefox on other people's computers, and so on and so on. Thank you. It wasn't me. It was these guys, although I'm somewhere in this picture. And that's the critical thing. Mozilla is made up of a set of people who have this common cause of building the world that Jay and Danny were talking about. And the thing that they gave us, again, I didn't join until 2008, so I'm not taking credit here. I joined because I think this is such a noble, important cause and organization. The thing they gave us is a very different internet that maybe it's abstract that we change what browser we use, but that actually is qualitatively different today than the one we had then. So if you think about the major sites that you use every day or products, the only one that existed in 2003 and is basically the same technology that it used in 2003 is Wikipedia. How many people use Wikipedia? A few people. None of these other things, and I guess if you put your hand up, most people use these things as well, existed, but more importantly, could have existed technologically inside of IE6. Because Microsoft had basically decided to abandon the web as a programming language, or as a set of programming languages. Didn't care. It wanted you to build stuff in ActiveX. It wanted you to build stuff that would run locally on Windows. Didn't have much hope for the internet. In fact, it wanted to stand in the way. And it's only as Firefox comes along, and then Chrome, and then Safari, that the programming languages of the web have a rebirth and allow you to have these richer applications. And actually get us to, for the geeks in the room, to the point today where we have HTML5, a more modern set of programming tools that let you do all kinds of crazy and interesting things inside of a web browser. Now maybe that doesn't sound important, but what it means is that anyone can innovate. Any one of those 7 billion people can do something without asking permission for the distribution of Microsoft or Apple or Google. You can just throw it out to anybody who has a web browser. And that's how you get this internet that I love so much today. But it's also, you know, how you get an internet where, like him or hate him, you know, Justin would not be famous, would not have been discovered without that internet that lets any of us get out there and tell that story. YouTube, also not possible in 2003 with IE6. And, you know, it's close to me, and it's close to what I love, because here's my son Tristan, wants to be Justin Bieber, and he's got his chance to get out there to the world. So that's really a critical thing about power in the internet, is that one company, when it had a monopoly, really was standing in the way of the idea that we could invent. And what's happened with Firefox and others, bringing back to life this fairly abstract idea of the set of powerful programming languages, actually fairly basic programming languages, that anyone can use to distribute anything in a browser, is a dramatic unleashing of creativity by humans for humans. And so that, of course, brings me to the internet I love and what makes me love it so much. And so there's Tristan, who's 13. You saw him. He wants to be Justin Bieber. There's Ethan. He just wants to be a goof. He's 11. And this is not an uncommon, maybe sad, but not an uncommon scene in our house with all of us on our laptop. And it is a family that loves the internet and a family that expresses itself on the internet. And so what's so special for us, and what's so special for me about the web as this fuel for human creativity? And it's something that Danny talked about with the internet overall. The web is really just a set of Lego blocks. It means there is almost virtually unlimited potential in what you can do with it. And that is a really important set of properties that's different than anything we've had since the printing press as a mechanical system of production. The web is completely open-ended. And so I want Ethan to explain what do I mean by that. So he's going to help. And Ethan loves Lego, likes to make things with Lego, a little bit less than he used to now that he's 11. He's probably 9 in the picture. But he also loves the web a lot. Loves a lot of the same things about the web that I do. So, you know, Ethan was the first one who showed me Sci. Of course, by now, Sci has jumped the shark. But he's also the one who showed me, you know, the dozens of different Sci knockoffs that I saw. So there's Sci in Minecraft. There's an actual NASA astronaut, I think, doing Gangnam Style. There's the Obama Gangnam Style, and so on. And what's interesting about Ethan's world, compared to the Gilligan's Island world that I grew up in, and this other old guy in the front, maybe 2 or 3 other people grew up with, is, you know, I know you're younger than me, sir, but you remember Gilligan's Island, right? Exactly. So, you know, what's different about that world is Ethan's mainstream cultural world is a world of remix. It's not a world that comes from New York or Hollywood. The mainstream stuff he will watch and show me and sit me down in front of comes from everyone. That's a really critical cultural transformation that I love, but also that we need to pay attention to, because the world doesn't have to work that way, And certainly in most moments in history, it hasn't. And what's also important is that Ethan's world, the world of the web, works that way by design. So not only, do the internet protocol that Danny talked about, have this sort of communitarian resource sharing component, but more importantly, or not more importantly, but in this story, Tim Berners-Lee and the people who engineered the web in the first case actually wanted the web to work like Lego, that you could build anything with. So they enabled a world where YouTube and Gangnam Style and whatever you want to make could happen. But they did it in a way where you could see inside it. You could see how it works. So even in 2013, and there's some ways in which this becomes a little obfuscated, I can go view source and see how does that page work? How did that person who made it put it together? That is the Lego that I can then, if I'm Mark Zuckerberg or someone slightly less evil, go and see, how I might take my own idea and make it real. Because this whole communication system that surrounds us, and as Danny says, it's also exploitable, but from a perspective of creativity, is what I can understand because it is designed to let me under the hood and to see what those building blocks are and to use them for many things. So Ethan lives in this world designed to be like Lego. And what Mozilla does, what I'm committed to, is we exist to keep the Lego awesome. And one of the things that I decided, a number of us decided that needed to happen a couple of years ago, is not only do we need to protect it, not only do we need to take on things like Internet Explorer, we also need to get to the point where ideally 7 billion people understand how that Lego set works. And we're a long way from that spot right now. In fact, fewer and fewer of us do know how that Lego set works. And so that gets me to my last theme, which is the empowerment part of this love story. Which is the internet certainly has been tremendously empowering. And it's not all the internet's fault, but certainly if you think about the Arab Spring or you even think about Gangnam Style, a lot of freedom and a lot of great ideas and a lot of crap have come from the empowering potential of the internet. But, it doesn't have to be that way, and we can certainly go back to this world of Internet Explorer where we were in 2003, where much less was possible, and possibilities were shrinking by the day. So 10 years later, how's that gone? How is that Lego set? Well, on the one level, it's awesome. So, there's beautiful things, they're in our pocket, they're shiny, the web is everywhere, it's about to be in our glasses, it's about to be implanted in us. Much of what we love about the electronic world is all around us. But in many ways, we're back to a world that's as bad or worse than 2003. Because if I want to put something inside of that device, there's one company who gets to say yes or no. And if I want to put something on that device with the building blocks that I know how to use on the web, I can't, because it doesn't work that way. And my phone's the same. Yes, Google makes it. Yes, it's open source. They're becoming the biggest, and I think will far overshadow Apple, the biggest oligopolistic publishing bottleneck ever in the history of humanity. Because they say who gets to publish what. So 10 years later, there's many ways in which the Lego set is better, the internet is better, but it also is getting worse. We're moving back to a world that is closed, where the ways in which we build the digital world are controlled by a few hands. The other piece of it is people are clear that they want to shape this world. And I love the Makey guys. I love watching Jay. We're lit up by the potential of what we can do with this stuff. And we did a survey, Mozilla commissioned a survey in the UK because we worked there a lot, saying, do people want to learn how to code? Do they want to be able to shape this world? And 67% of kids 8 to 15 said yes. 3% said they know how to code. And so there's a big gap between the way the technology is going, which is closing down, people's desire to shape it, and people's ability to shape it, which is the reason that we decided to start this Webmaker initiative, which is really saying we want to move to a world where everybody actually understands how to shape and manipulate this world. We also want to move to a world where the tools continue to be available for us to create anything we want and for it to be easy to learn how to create that. So we set up a goal for ourselves, which is in addition to Firefox, in addition to bringing Firefox onto mobile, something called Webmaker. We want to show everyone how the Lego works so that in the fun of playing on the internet, they actually learn how it works. So we launched a year ago and just relaunched last week something called Mozilla Webmaker, which invites you to come, and you can't see the funny animated GIFs, but they're in here. Come and make fun things, but in a way that teaches you how the web works as you go. And it takes that remix culture and that popular culture of the internet as a way to teach you how things work as you go along. So if you wanted to just make a keep calm, carry on poster, another meme that jumped the shark, but I'm just trying to keep it the lowest common denominator. You know, we actually let you do that. We've got lots of great stuff you can come and do, but we take you in and talk you through how to do that in HTML. Kind of crunchy, kind of crappier than Facebook, but also unlimited potential, not that hard to learn, and a way that you can pick some skills up as you go. The more interesting thing we've done is something called Popcorn, which we think will become a big piece of how this works, which is a way to take videos and just throw anything else you want from the internet inside of them. So it lets a video become like a web page that is a set of Lego that's not just finished, but you can add to. So you can see I've just dragged animated GIFs from around the internet into my Gangnam Style video. And so this is us trying to keep that spirit of the internet as Lego alive. I love all that stuff. And so that's something that we think that in addition to doing what Danny said, which I believe, that we need a fallback internet, in addition to keeping the technology open, which is what we and others are doing with things like Firefox OS, having a mobile system that works like the web, we really believe we also need to teach each other how this stuff works. And we need to do it at a massive scale. The Webmaker Tools are a piece of it. We're also trying to gather a teacher community around it and then encourage people to go out and teach. So we just launched, I guess it's still last week, June 15th, a campaign this summer called Maker Party saying, go out and teach somebody how to make something on the web, whether it's you and 2 people and a pizza and a laptop or 200 people. Like, this is a really important thing for us to do. And you can see we've already got events all over the world, mostly on the East Coast of the US, because that's where we kicked it off in New York last week. But over the course of the summer, trying to build that drumbeat. And it is just as simple as getting together around a laptop, even if you don't think you know that much, and showing somebody who knows a little less, or figuring it out together. And that's the thing, again, that we think is as important as what we're doing with Firefox and Firefox OS. And we think it can be massive. If you think about the scouting movement, it actually has done a tremendous amount to bring us to the world we are. And one example of that is how many people, what do you think is the biggest social innovation that the scouting movement took mainstream in the world? Any guesses? Toilet, cycling, good. No, not cookies. Close. So camping, civilian camping. If you think about 100 years ago, camping was an arcane thing done only by professionals. If you were in the army, if you were a prospector, you camped. It was heavy, difficult to assemble equipment. Nobody would have ever thought of doing it. How many people here camp? So it's not impossible to imagine a grassroots movement that will teach the world how the internet works, make it about joy, and keep it alive. And so that's what we believe, is that just as the scouting movement was able to, around the world, almost completely on volunteer energy, spread the idea of camping, stewardship, which actually really critical to the modern environmental movement, that there's a role that Mozilla can play, that you can play, not only in using the technology that is going to keep the internet alive, but making it so 7 billion of us get to continue to shape the internet into the future. And for us, that's key to continuing to be a piece at the center of the joy and creativity that is really there for us all to seize. So we want you to get involved. Put on a mascot suit and join us. Thanks.